4 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me? My name is Lily Crawford. I am the director of the Delaware Center for Enterprise Development at the College of Business at Delaware State University. It has been my pleasure to work with Councilman David Anderson and Mrs. Ann Smith, who is the Central Delaware NAACP president. And I am delighted we are able to sponsor this virtual town hall. I believe the outstanding of who are passionate about the dramatic impact of COVID-19. Councilman Anderson will serve as a moderator for our panel discussion. But before we begin, I am honored to introduce the distinguished dean of the College of Business at Delaware State University, Dr. Michael Capson, who will give greetings at this time.
Good afternoon, Delaware small business community. Delaware State University College of Business sees itself as a vital component and contributor to Delaware's economic and business ecosystem. As such, we are excited about the opportunity to host this event, thereby bringing the university and our network partners full resources to the table to combat the impact of COVID on our small business community. To this end, I would also like to acknowledge the Dover City Council and specifically Councilman Anderson for his tireless years of leadership and service to the citizens of Dover, as well as Ms. Ann Smith for her leadership within NAACP and the myriad of contributions to the communities of Dover as well. Finally, I would like to thank Ms. Lily Crawford, Director of the College of Business's Delaware Center for Enterprise Development, for her leadership, vision, and commitment to providing the support necessary for our small businesses to prosper. Today, we have a panel rich with insight and resources. Thus, I urge all participants to listen intently, ask questions, and follow up. Thank you and enjoy the session.
Thank you. Councilman Anderson, we will turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone who has joined us, and I want to thank each of the participants for bringing your knowledge and experience. Today, we are going to cover several areas which will help businesses not only survive, but I hope will eventually have tools to thrive. The times that we are in are very challenging, and we are ready to meet that challenge. We're going to meet it with information and with the resources that are needed. There's been some resources we'll discuss at the end on the local level, and I encourage you to stay through that. And I would also like to ask that you take your notes and put in the chats your questions so we can have a robust discussion and questions at the end of the presentations for the panelists. Your city and your county are with you, uh, and we believe that, and we also are grateful that many people in the community are, including the business, Delaware State University, Central Delaware NAACP, and each of the members of this panel. So thank you very much, and I would like to introduce, without further ado, our first panelist, Mr. John Banks, Deputy Director, Small Business Administration. If you'd like to bring his slide up, thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure and an honor to participate today on the town hall. And what I really like to do is just talk about some of the assistance that SBA has been providing to help small business navigate through these difficult times. SBA has played a vital role from the federal perspective in helping small businesses, and I want to just talk a little bit about some of the assistance that we provide and that we continue to provide for those small businesses that have not had an opportunity to take advantage of the assistance available. Can we go to the next slide, please? So one of the first things that SBA did as a result of the CARES Act was first of all, let me give you a little bit of background as far as SBA and how we assist. We help small businesses with access to capital. We are not a direct lender, but we do make it possible for a small business to get the loan that they're looking for to help start or expand their business through loan guarantees. And the way the process works in general is that that small business would go to the bank of their choosing and apply for conventional financing. If that lender cannot do the loan on a conventional basis, SBA gets involved by offering a guarantee. And we literally offer that lending institution a guarantee where SBA will assume up to 85% of the risk away from the lender to make that loan available to that small business. So in essence, SBA almost becomes a co-signer. The federal government becomes a co-signer, and with us assuming that much of the risk away, the bank or that financial institution is usually more willing to make the loan available to that customer. When this crisis hit, we know that many of our small businesses would have difficulty making their loan payments, and as a result of a provision in the CARES Act, we were able to pay up to 6 months of loan payments, and that is for anyone that has a traditional 7A loan, if you have an SBA-backed microloan, or if you have a 504 loan, which is a fancy word for our real estate investment programs. We can pay up to 6 months from April on of your principal and interest payments. You don't have to do anything. SBA is making those payments on your behalf, and these are payments that you do not have to repay. We just wanted to give you a shot in the arm to help you with some of the other challenges and not necessarily have to worry through this. It is important for me to note that if you're a small business and you take out a loan today, and the loan is fully dispersed by September 27th, which is the deadline, SBA can take and pay up to 6 months of those loans payments as well under this provision with the CARES Act. Next slide, please. So one of the programs that we were directly involved in, and trust me, we've had our challenges with this one, is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or the EIDL loan program. This program is a working capital loan program that was designed to help small businesses pay their fixed debt, in some instances, their payroll, their accounts payables, and other bills that small business would have been able to pay had it not been for the disaster. This loan program is a fixed rate loan, 3.75% is the interest rate. We made this loan program available to nonprofit organizations as well, and their interest rate was fixed at 2.75% with a long term of 30 years. In 30 years was the maximum term, but if the small business demonstrated the ability to pay it shorter than 30 years, we definitely took that into consideration. But our challenge and what we were looking at by extending the term out to 30 years is that once we resume normal operations, we did not want this loan payment to be a burden for the small business. So the monthly payment was, by extending that out 30 years, made the loan payment as small as possible so it wouldn't be burdensome. And although it had a 30-year term, the small business had the ability to pay the loan off at any time without having to worry about any type of prepayment penalty. Along with this particular loan program, there was another modification in the CARES Act that basically gave us the opportunity to provide a grant for this program as well. And the grant was calculated based on the number of employees that a company employed. It was $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. And this was, in most cases, the initial advancement that a small business received from the Small Business Administration prior to us making disposition on the loan request. The grant was issued, and then subsequent to that, we would negotiate what the company qualified for in terms of financial assistance. We received a significant number of applications throughout the country. The program actually ran out of money and we got an additional allocation, but right now the SBA has decided that they were limiting new applications to agriculture related businesses for the time being. We strongly believe that the program will be extended to other businesses that did not get a chance to apply, but this probably won't happen until the Paycheck Protection Program or the PPP program expires, which is scheduled to expire on June 30th. And we'll talk about this next, but I wanted to mention that as of May 30th, we managed to help small businesses with this particular loan program with approximately $149 million and 1,800 loans, businesses located here in Delaware. Next slide. Let's talk about the Paycheck Protection Program, and this is one that has been extremely popular. In the objective of the program was just to keep small businesses, their staffs on board, even if your business was closed throughout as a result of the COVID-19 coronavirus. We advanced a loan that covered up to 8 weeks of the company's payroll expenses. And if the company used the loan proceeds to support their payroll expenses, at minimum 75%, that was the basic requirement, 75% of the loan proceeds had to be used to support payroll. And for the non-payroll portion, up to 25% of the loan proceeds could be used to support items such as rent, mortgage interest, or utilities. And if you use the loan proceeds in a combination of 75% for payroll and up to 25% in those three categories, at the end of the process, the loan could be totally forgiven. The loan was made available to a large variety of banks, financial institutions, fintechs, and other institutions as well. And has been by far our most successful and most popular program. On the next slide, give you some general statistics. Nationwide, there was over $510 billion issued to small businesses, nonprofit organizations across the country. More importantly, here in the state of Delaware, more than $1.5 billion was issued to small businesses and a total of 11,574 loans to businesses here. Did want to talk a little bit about some other things that are happening. Last week, our Congress, the House of Representatives approved a modification to the program. Oh, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So one of the challenges and part of the feedback that we received was that despite the number of businesses receiving opportunities from the Paycheck Protection Program, there are a lot of businesses that did not get a chance to capitalize. Some smaller businesses that didn't have banking relationships were being left out. One of the one of the modifications that SBA did last year was we took a look at the allocation remaining, and we set aside $10 billion of that funding, and we designated to be used exclusively by community development financial institutions, CDFIs, and these organizations typically cater to provide loans to low-income communities and small businesses. We wanted to make sure that some of those businesses that did not have the necessary banking relationships had an opportunity to really take advantage of this particular program as well. Now, in addition to that, our federal legislators are making some modifications to the program as we speak right now. As I mentioned, the House overwhelmingly approved. I believe only one vote was to the negative to change some of the provisions into the program. One of the requirements of the program was that you had to demonstrate that at least 75% of the dollars from the loan was used to support payroll, and that process began from the date of disbursement. So if you got your loan today, we were counting up for the next 8 weeks all of the use of proceeds in the area of payroll. And again, it was 75% and up to 25% in the other 3 areas to qualify for forgiveness. What we found and what the small business community was sharing with us was that 8 weeks was really not enough time. And so part of what the federal legislators are looking at was extending that period from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. And that will give a lot of small businesses the opportunity to meet that particular requirement, but not within that compressed period of time. And we are definitely welcoming that particular change. Again, part of the feedback that we received from the small business community was that I have the loan, I'm approved the loan, but I'm afraid to use it because I don't believe that I can meet that particular requirement. And if I can't meet that requirement, I won't qualify for forgiveness. And now I have to pay the loan back, and that's going to be a financial challenge for my institution. So we're glad to see that our federal legislators are really looking at this, and it is moving aggressively ahead. And it looks like there will be a change from the 8-week requirement to 24 weeks. In addition to that, many of the small businesses have communicated to us, it's great that we can use a portion of the monies for rent, utilities, and some other areas. But my challenge is that I need additional funding opportunities in those areas in order to continue to survive. And the 75-25% ratio is not enough to allow me to meet and to continue to operate successfully. So part of the pending legislation that our federal legislators are currently looking at is reducing the requirement from 75% to 60%. 60% of the proceeds must be used to support your payroll, a small business's payroll expenses. And up to 40% can be used for non-payroll purposes in those 3 particular areas. And that gives you a greater flexibility and a lot easier to meet with those 2 modifications in play. So we are looking at it. We thought that we would have something in play prior to today's session, but I am happy to mention that from what we're hearing from our federal legislators, that there is bipartisan support to make these modifications happen. So it's only a matter of time. Next slide. Next slide. I wanted to make sure that everyone had at least a contact person available from SBA when it was interesting for us is that the day after our office officially closed, our telephone system died, and we all had to get new telephone numbers. And a lot of folks been trying to reach us through the old telephone information, and here's the new information to reach our staff team. Rachel Baldini, she used to work for True Access Capital. She has joined our team. She's a marketing outreach specialist, and I wanted to make sure that you guys had access to questions. Wanted to also talk about some other things to help small businesses reconstitute. As many of you are aware, the Small Business Administration partially funds the Small Business Development Center, the Service Corps of Retired Executives, and the Women's Business Center. These organizations now are really devoted to helping small businesses reconstitute. There are a bunch of ongoing classes, webinars, trainings, etc., to help you in the small business community prepare to get your business back off the ground after this business interruption. But in addition to that, the Small Business Administration also has some online classes. We have some classes available on our website at sba.gov. Just click on the Learning tab. For our 8A businesses, and these are small disadvantaged businesses that receive certain certifications from the Small Business Administration to do contracting, our women-owned small business certified businesses, as well as our Hub Zone certified small businesses. SBA has hired a contractor to provide free training to those types of businesses on getting your business back up and running. It's absolutely free to you if you meet the criteria for 8A. Even if you're not officially 8A certified, but if you believe that you can meet the criteria for social and disadvantaged ownership and control, you can take advantage of these opportunities as well. Lily Crawford will be sharing a lot of the information relative to the classes that are being made available to these types of businesses at the conclusion of our presentation, and we will make sure that you have access to this information. And now I'm going to turn the presentation back over to the next presenter.
Thank you very much. This is it's quite informative, and we are collecting questions. So I would encourage everyone to keep their questions coming so that we can have them, and we will ask them. Our next presenter is Miss Patricia Cannon, and she is part of the Delaware Division of Small Businesses. And if you'd like to, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I appreciate that. I am so excited to be here. I want to thank Annie Smith for inviting me to participate. To be on the same panel with John Banks and Dean Casson is a gift in my life. So thank you. I know them both and I respect them both tremendously. So I'm honored to be here. So again, the Delaware Division of Small Business is your state level. So John Banks represents your federal mantra, mission-oriented organization that loves small business and wants you to grow and thrive. And we are your state level entity. And we work very closely together with them in trying to build programs. Again, we don't try to build programs to compete with what the federal programs are or to compete with our traditional lenders. We try to find ways to fill gaps. And so that's what we're going to go through here a little bit today as some of the things that we're doing. And so we know that wherever you are right now in your business, whether you were a restaurant or a retail operation, a service provider, today you are trying to stabilize that business. We are trying to make sure that you have hope and resources, that you don't give up, that you hang in there and tell us what you need and help us help you. I feel like Jerry Maguire, right? But that's what we want to do. So we want to help you increase your sales. That's one way of getting money in your door, right? Let's sell some stuff. And then to find other resources that might be available to you as well. So we know one of the first things that we've heard from lots of people out there in the community doing surveys, I frankly think people are a little survey fatigued now. Like if I have one more person ask me, would you answer 20 questions to tell me where you are? I just want to scream. But what we're hearing is we've got to build trust. People need to feel as a customer that if I come to your place of business, that you're going to keep me safe and I'm going to keep you safe, and that it's safe for us to do business together. So we're trying to find ways to help you do that. We want to help you find ways to find new customers. One of the things we did very early on when everybody was shut down completely was we just developed a map and said, if you're open, even if it's just online to sell gift cards, let us know and we'll put you in our map so that people can find you and know that you're open. If you're doing curbside delivery as a sandwich shop, let's let people know. Again, there are lots of ways to do it, but we were just trying to be one more avenue to get customers to your door or to your website. And the other thing that we know is certainly short-term and most likely long-term, people that interact with their customers in face-to-face situations are going to have to be looking at how do I retrofit my business to ensure that we can do safe social distancing, to keep our customers safe, to keep our employees safe. And sadly, most of that retrofitting will cost money. You'll need capital to do that, right? So then to Mr. Banks' point, we need to help you find access to capital. So with that, I ask you to go to the next slide, please. So this is one of the first things that we have come out with from the state. We partnered with the Delaware Division of Public Health. They are following CDC guidelines and coming up with this customer protection standard that essentially says, if you can attest that you are doing all the things you need to do according to current protection standards that are being published, that we'll send you one of these labels to say to your customers when they're walking in your front door, I'm certified, or I'm certifying myself. So the state obviously is in no position to go to every business and do a step-by-step certification, but so we will ask the businesses to self-certify. And if we can go to again, this slide will come out to you, but the next slide will show you there you go. Those are all the things that you're going to have to self-certify that you're doing as a business that will keep your employees safe, will keep you safe as the business owner, and will keep your customers safe. And if you can check all those boxes, then you can certify, or again, you're self-certifying that you're doing everything you can to have your customer protection standards in place. Again, we expect that whether we have another spike or not, that these might change, right, as the science gets better and we get more information. But today, these are the items that you'd have to be able to self-certify to qualify to get one of those stickers to put on your window. So let's go to the next slide, please. So then the question is, if you wanted to open your door on Monday, if you were allowed to as part of phase 1, and you were allowed to have 30% capacity, but you needed to be able to do certain things, like you needed to have masks for your employees, and you need to have disinfectant for the high touch areas, and you needed to have hand sanitizer. And we heard from lots of businesses that they just couldn't find those things. And if they could find them, they couldn't afford them because the law of supply and demand, when there weren't many of them and a few vendors had them, they didn't think they were price gouging, but if you were trying to buy it, that's what it felt like. And so we tried to figure out how can we help? So the Division of Small Business at the state of Delaware worked with our Delaware Emergency Management folks and the governor's office, and we were able to get access to 5,000 kind of starter kits. And in those starter kits, each kit will have a small supply of face masks. They will have a kind of looks like a large bottle of Windex. It's that size with a little squeeze trigger. And it actually is a bleach-based disinfectant. It's important for you to know it's bleach-based because if you spray it on the wrong thing, it will take the color out, but it will work. It will kill the germs. And then you will have some hand sanitizer in those kits. So it's a one-time allocation of these 5,000 kits, but we are trying our best. Siobhan White, who is not on as a panelist, she was gracious enough to defer to allow me to do this. And thank you, Siobhan. She's she's as an attendee here, but she and I have been pushing these out, getting them out to the community. Siobhan is our director of the Office of Supplier Diversity. So I'm embarrassed. She is a friend, a good friend and a colleague. And I forgot to put the Office of Supplier Diversity on here as one of the organizations that has access to these kits. So if you are a certified minority or women-owned business, you want to reach out to Siobhan. She has a kit for you. Again, first come, first serve. She has 200 kits allocated to the Office of Supplier Diversity. Every state senator and state representative had 40 kits allocated to them. Every local Main Street director, the part of the National Main Street organization, they got 35, and every local Chamber of Commerce got 35. So again, it's first come, first serve. They are free. It's a way to help you get your door open. And so please reach out and get them. And then the other thing we realized was that when the state of Delaware was in the peak of, oh my gosh, we have doctors and nurses and people riding in ambulances that don't have all the equipment they need. And so we were desperately trying to get it. So there were a lot of PR campaigns running saying, if you have anything to give or sell that can help us meet this requirement for personal protection equipment for our first responders, would you contact the state of Delaware? And so they put up a website and lots of people put stuff up there. Some Delaware businesses, some out of the state. Some of them simply said, here's my catalog, shop. And others gave real detailed information of what they had available. So the State Government Service Center kind of sorted through all of that and selected the vendors that seemed to make sense for them, negotiated and bought from them. But what they had was this rich data of potential business to business sales, but the state didn't have the capacity, we don't have the capacity to vet them all, but we wanted to make that information available to you so that if you need plexiglass to put up to protect people come into your front window, anything like that, that's what the next website will take you to. That business to business portal will take you to that list. You can sort for almost anything. And I believe we now have it so you can sort for minority and women-owned businesses as well. Siobhan has been working on trying to make sure that that's a sortable feature. But again, if you need it, we have the kits available, first come, first serve. Let's get those out into our small businesses today. And then the business to business portal for resources for tomorrow. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's pretend that you are in a business situation currently. Before the shutdown, you were already in business. We know some of you may not have been, but let's assume you were for this discussion on this slide. So if retrofitting your space has become necessary, we want to encourage you to consider the potential stackable incentives for redevelopment that exist within a downtown development district. So we are speaking, I think a lot of the people on this particular call happen to be in Dover, and Dover does have a significant presence in the downtown development district, but they are kind of peppered throughout the state. There are lots of communities that have them. If you have to do retrofitting of your facility, you want to ask the question, am I in a downtown development district anywhere in the state of Delaware? Because if I am, and I have to make a capital investment, I might qualify for these for a commercial redevelopment project that I have to do to be able to safely open and protect my customers and protect my employees. So these are all the programs that you might qualify for in that situation. They exist for commercial redevelopment. Ask the question, do not leave money on the table. If there's one thing you remember out of anything I say, it's don't leave money on the table. Ask the question. If you don't qualify, that's, at least you asked. If you go ahead and spend the money and you make the capital investment, very few programs, especially government programs, will retroactively provide benefit for that. So you always want to ask the question before you make the capital investment. Next slide, please. All right, so most of you are in Dover. You're probably familiar with the House of Coffee. This was a downtown development district program that did in fact get the DDD rebate, the downtown development district rebate for this project, and they did stackable benefits. That's the only way this project worked. So I think it's a really great before and after photo of how it can work. Obviously, your businesses probably weren't looking as rough as the before picture here, but the capital investment that you may need to make may be as significant as the House of Coffee one was. And the DDD for commercial redevelopment has a more flexible ruling for eligibility if it's on a project that is under $350,000. So again, ask the question, do not leave money on the table. Next slide, please. All right, so let's assume for the sake of argument, you may or may not be in a DDD, a downtown development district, but you might be eligible for other things. So the Delaware Division of Revenue has a program called the New Business Facility Tax Credit. And if you make a capital investment of at least, I believe it's $200,000, and you create at least 5 new jobs paying at least $40,000 each, you could qualify feasibly for a $500 per job tax credit, and that tax credit lasts for 10 years as long as you maintain those jobs. So again, ask the question before you move forward with your capital investment. If you're in an opportunity zone, again, Dover has, I think, 3 opportunity zone census tracts. So ask the question, if you are in an opportunity zone and you have to make a capital investment for any reason, maybe you were getting ready to buy a new freezer anyway, or maybe it's to retrofit because of the safety features you want to instill in your facility. If you're in an opportunity zone, you should know that, because now when you go and try to seek an equity investor to help you put money, even if it's, the guy across the street that you've known for 20 years, or your banker, such as Mr. Banks or Mr. Reznicki. I'm not sure I'm saying your name correctly, Chaz, but you can correct me when you get on here. When you go to them, if you're in an opportunity zone, you should tell them that, because there are a lot of funding streams that are aggressively looking for investments in opportunity zones. And then you should know, if you happen to be in a certified brownfield site, there are programs available through DNREC and the Division of Small Business to help you with that remediation. So again, my mantra, do not leave money on the table. Before you spend $1 in a capital investment, let's ask the questions and find out, make sure you get all the resources available to you as you're stacking to make that investment to get your business reopened. Next slide, please. So this is my favorite, absolute favorite slide, and I'll tell you why. This is an example of stacking resources and how we know how to do this in Delaware. This is before opportunity zones were a glint in anybody's eye. It is before COVID-19 was a term any of us knew what it meant. This is a project that was done a couple of years ago. What you see on the left is, I used to always say it was a vacant warehouse, and the guy that used to own it corrected me once and said it wasn't completely vacant. We were using a portion of it. It looks vacant to me. So this was what it used to look like for years and years and years. A new developer came along and he said, I have a vision for that. I think that could be an affordable housing project with beautiful loft apartments. And so the Clifford Brown Walkway is known as the Lofts. It is an example of a project that it qualified for low-income housing tax credits, historical tax credits, and brownfield remediation reimbursements, and stacking all of those together made it work. And so if anybody on this phone happens to be, on this call happens to be holding an Apple phone, I don't, I'm an Android girl. But if you have an Apple phone, I want to say thank you, because you invested in this project. You don't realize you invested in this project, but the state historical tax credits are sellable. They can sell them on the open market. So Apple Corporation said to their finance person, we need you to go out and find some tax credits for us to buy. And Apple Corporation, when you looked at the financials that made this deal happen, Apple Corporation is a line item because they bought those tax credits. So again, ask the questions. You just never know what resources might be available to you. Next slide, please. All right, so these are some resource links. The first one takes you to our Division of Small Business website. We actually, I guess now almost 3 years ago, put together a resource map, and we have about 100 resource partners, and everyone you see on this screen is one of our resource partners. So if you go and say, I'm looking for a loan, and I'm in the Kent County area, then John Banks' counterpart, John, I don't remember who you have in representing Kent. Is that Jim Provo? Yes, okay. So Jim Provo would come up as a contact, and certainly the Dover Federal Credit Union. So it's just a searchable way to find information for resources. The next thing is, if the day before shutdown, you were thinking, you know, I always wanted to start a flower shop. I always wanted to start an auto repair shop, but you hadn't quite gotten there yet. You want to go to the onestop.delaware.gov to get some guidance on how to get yourself up and running. The next link will take you to the state planning office with information about eligibility for downtown development districts. And then the mainstreet.org is an organization to help you build your community if you're looking at community development. Next slide, please. Is that my last slide? Oh, here we go. So most of you are familiar with this now. We got a lot of press out there. The HELP program was specifically for hospitality industry. I won't read all of this to you. I hate when people read to me, so I won't read to you. You'll get this slide, but I will say to you, we wrote a grant application to the the Federal Economic Development Administration under U.S. Department of Commerce. Any of you who live in the nonprofit world know you write a million grants and you hope to get one. We hope to get this one. We asked for a grant to extend essentially what you see there as the HELP program across all industries. And the biggest difference between what we would do with that grant is not duplicate anything that you're going to hear about in today's seminar, but to fill the gaps for people who had a business that they were revenue generating for 6 months prior to the shutdown, that we would be able to give them some support and again, give them a 12-month, no interest, no payment time period to start that 10-year maturity to allow them some time to get back on their feet. So we're hopeful saying prayers, got our fingers and toes crossed. So if that happens, we hope to have some good news to announce soon. Next slide, please. I think the next one may be my last one. Oh, and so this link on our website takes you to some of the other financial programs that are available out there. And one of the things we're running is a social media contest, trying to get people to do the Takeout Tuesday, trying to get them to buy from your retail stores and submit their the picture of what they bought. And we're doing $25 gift cards, again, trying to celebrate that just to generate some activity. And I believe that may be my last slide, Chris, is that correct? Yeah, so I'm going to turn it back to you, Councilman Anderson.
Thank you very much for that informative presentation. Our next speaker is the CEO of Dover Federal Credit Union, Mr. Chad Smith.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Chris, I'm going to go through the first 5 or 6 slides fairly quickly. So just an FYI. So you can go to the first one, please. Okay, just a brief minute on who we are. So I am with Dover Federal Credit Union. Sole purpose of helping our members get there, really wherever that may be. We were founded in 1958 on Dover Air Force Base, where we still do have a branch. We are a full service, not-for-profit financial cooperative. So that's a little bit unique for us, actually being a member-owned financial cooperative. We have 8 locations statewide, kind of starting in Newcastle and Bennington. Thank you. So I said we were a not-for-profit financial cooperative, and what that really means is we don't have shareholders. Our members, the individuals who have accounts, those are the individuals who own us as an institution. They elect a board of directors that is not paid. So we have a voluntary board of directors that's not paid. And because of some of those uniquenesses, we're really able to turn a lot of our profits into the membership and generally offer lower rates and better terms for our members all the way around. We have 42,000 members kind of all throughout the state of Delaware, and a good part of ours, our Air Force goes so kind of throughout the world from there. As an institution, we really care for our employees and our members. They are first and foremost to us. Next slide, please. So Dover Federal was one of the lenders that participated in the PPP program. As of 6/1, we have kind of suspended taking applications with some of the funds use timeframes in there and lack of forgiveness. We've had members that were just nervous at this point moving forward, so we stopped it. But overall, it was a very good program. Dover Federal had about $10 million in these PPP loans, and we really did loans that were for truly small businesses. Can you go to the next slide, please? So out of our $10 million, our average loan size was about $70,000. Average employee count of 13, and that included a couple big loans. So if we were to take those big loans out, our 4 biggest loans, then that really goes to an average of about $55,000. 50.43% of the PPP loans that we did were to women and minority-owned businesses. And of those loans that we did, 49% of them were to non-members. In the beginning, I'm sure everybody heard that was one of the things that was kind of had a lot of people upset, where even banks were turning or were just doing things for their customers and for their members. So we really wanted to take a different approach right from the beginning and help whoever we possibly could. So 49% of the loan for 54% were owned businesses. and 41% of those were minority-owned businesses. Again, we really tried to concentrate on the small guys here. So our smallest loan was $1,197. We had several very, very, very small loans like that, but the $1,197 loans were as important to those members as the $300,000 and $400,000 loans were to those members. So we're glad we were able to help. Next slide, please. The economic impact disaster loan. I'm going to skip over this since you guys already did a pretty good job of covering that, so I won't spend a whole bunch of time on there. But there is another website for those interested in that. Next slide, please. Like I said, we're really here to help however we can. We are a community financial institution, and we really pride ourselves in giving back and helping however we can. Oftentimes, small business owners just don't have the knowledge they need to come up with capital spots and figure out the whole banking system. So I'm putting our contact up there, who is Tim O'Connor, who is our business relationship manager. He is expecting calls from anybody who might have questions, whether it be on funding sources or just words of advice on how he would take your business or help you financially. So just want to put that contact out there, and please feel free to reach out to him. He is more than willing to talk to anybody who has questions. Next slide, please. So some tips for running your business. It is a new world. COVID-19 has really changed a lot over the last few months. As business owners and business people, we've really got to adapt to a new way of doing business. We're just not going to be able to go back to the way things used to be. You know, my team and I have had lots of conversations on those businesses that are waiting to go back to the way things used to be probably won't be here forever. It is a new world. You've really got to be flexible and think outside the box. Really be flexible in engaging your customers. It's going to be completely different. Changed. Our members and customers are going to have different expectations of us. And if you want to thrive in the new world, you've really got to get in their brain and figure out how do they want our service to go. If you have not been part of the social media and really social marketing standpoint of your business, then now it's a 100% must. There's really no time. Again, if we ever go through something like this again, you've got to be prepared to really market yourself in that aspect. It is went from being a somewhat requirement to an absolutely has to in a 60-day period of time. Another thing is adjust hours as necessary. A lot of people are afraid to adjust hours because they're afraid to give up sales or things like that. I would say that, like Dover Federal is doing, we're taking a hard look at our hours and saying, when do our members really want us here? And if it doesn't make sense to have people there, then again, we're going to have to make cuts to make that happen. So don't be afraid to make changes that help you out. Study your hours, study things like that. And again, don't be afraid to change things from the way they used to be. Next, please. So 10 things to think about. Really do an honest assessment of the damage the shutdown has done to your business. Sometimes we like to wear rose-colored glasses, and that is not always a good thing. You really need to have brutally honest conversations with yourself and figure out where you stand. Really look at cash flows so you have time to plan. That is an actual key. Individuals that don't have cash to pay their bills are going to have issues. So try to project some of that up front. revisit your business model. Like I said earlier, you are really going to need to adapt to the new normal. Not sure what that new normal is yet. And I think for every business, it is going to be completely different. But you really have to figure out what the new normal is for your business and make adjustments as necessary. Way, make times of times of craziness, you can turn them into opportunities, and it can be a time for your business to flourish as well. So plan. And what I really mean by this is think strategically. Ask the really hard questions. Every business owner and business person should be asking themselves, what does the world look like in 1, 3, and 5 years? And how does my business adapt and look like it in that 1, 3, or 5 year period? Again, we're going to change. We have nothing but time on our side if we kind of take the time to think through what's going to change and what we're going to do to adapt. Slow and steady wins the race. So if you continue to kind of invest in your organization, then over time you can make the change necessary to keep your business viable and moving forward. So 4 is funding. We said earlier that capital is going to need. That is absolutely going to be a need. So if you have a funding need, there are a lot of different areas that you can go to funding for. A whole bunch of them were already said by the previous presenter, so they really probably had the most valuable of information. Please look to their PowerPoints. But Dover Federal is also one. We have a pretty robust small business lending program, and we are here to help. The institutions and organizations in Dover and Delaware and kind of throughout Delaware. So we are one of those funding sources, and then we can also work with the SBA and some others to help you where we can. That is another one that Tim, if you have any questions on that area, Tim O'Connor, our relationship manager, would be more than willing to help you. But we definitely would like to if we can. Grant opportunities, Verizon and Salesforce have some. Some other ones were also mentioned again in previous presentations, but there is some help out there right now. It's finding the help that sometimes is, but I think today you guys have some great suggestions with these couple and from previous slides. Next, please. Controlling expenses is going to be really a key for businesses over the next couple years, for all businesses. For us at the credit union and for everybody else. I would recommend really taking a hard look at all your expenses. We've kind of undergone an initiative at Dover Federal. We're calling all of our vendors and asking for them to, help us through. Surprisingly, a lot of vendors have been very willing to offer reductions in prices and some of that. I would, what somebody said earlier was just ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask the question on will they give you something off, or tell them you're struggling through these times, and you might get some help. There are vendors that will come in and help you with some of the major ones, telephone and some of those big ones. But if not, you can usually do on a personal level, really hone in on some of those. But you really need to control expenses over the next couple of years. Another one to think about is staffing and training. So start preparing for what you do when you have employees that don't want to come back to work for whatever reason. How are you going to train new employees? How are you going to make employees feel safe? That is a really important one, because people don't always feel safe right now. And as an employer, you need to provide them that safe atmosphere. And when they feel safe, the return to you as an employer will be significantly better. And at the same time, consumer safety is equally as important, because everybody's just not feeling safe right now, especially as we're starting to open slowly. People are nervous, and again, as as an organization or a business, if you can provide that safety and soundness to your staff and to your customers, I think it'll go a long way. Number 9 is prepare for a second wave. I hope to God that this doesn't that a second wave of this could come through. Again, like I said earlier, you have nothing but time on our hands to plan for some of that. So get yourself in a position that if that happens, you know exactly what you do. You've by that point, you've already made adjustments to your business to allow you to cope with some of that. And then hopefully it isn't as hard the second time around as it is the first. Again, I hope we come up with a vaccine and that never happens. But it is entirely possible that will not be the case. So last but not least is customer and staff experience. Again, this is going to be a really trying time for everybody that is involved in this. It's more important now than ever to create that exceptional experience for your employees and for your customers. It is just the key to all success. I mean, there's a lot of people under a lot of stress. When they come to your organization, they need to leave in a better place mentally than they came in. If you add to the stress in their lives, then they likely will not return. So do what you can do to really help that from that angle. Next, please. So if you need a financial assistance, again, we are a financial institution that wants to be there for everybody in the community. Or whatever the need, we can likely figure out a solution sometimes as a smaller organization, and we're a smaller organization for asset size for most institutions. We've got 140 employees. So sometimes with smaller institutions like us, we can come up with some more out of the box solutions that are able to truly help small businesses. So our sole purpose, again, is to help our community get there, wherever that might be. So if we can do anything to help, then please feel free to call Tim, whose contact was earlier, or there's 2 other individuals here. Tim is for all business-related items, and then we also have Shanice Boyd for any commercial item or personal items. Anything like that, how she can help you. We have a program that will help you increase your credit score. So if you need help with that to even get into a loan, then Shanice could help with something like that. I think that is it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation, Chance, and you do a great job, and thank you for what Dover Federal Credit Union does in the community. It has quite extensive work in the community.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Dr. Kim Warfield Walker, who has many different in the community. Not only is she a minister, but she's a counselor, has degrees in that. She's a personal trainer, deals with nutrition, and has a great deal of experience as well with business as a businesswoman. And she was a retired New York City police officer and current sheriff's deputy for Kent County. So without further ado, Dr. Warfield Walker.
Thank you, David. I want to say good afternoon to everyone. And David, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak here today. I'm here on a different capacity because I'm a counselor. And I want to give a few tips for employers before returning to work after COVID-19. As a counselor, I usually deal with the mindset of people. So the first thing I want to speak about is changing your mindset, not only for your employers, but also for your employees, because COVID-19 will have a lasting impact on the state of your employees. And I'm talking about mindset now. Even when life has somewhat returned to normal, your employees may have a new hyper awareness about getting sick from everyday activities in the past they took for granted. Employees may be nostalgic for a time when they could simply live their lives normally without the new strain COVID has caused on daily life. Therefore, when your employees return to normal, it won't be normal. You will have to know the employees' comfort levels. And while learning their comfort levels, you will have to now maintain a healthy workplace for them. So the next thing I want to talk about is maintaining that healthy workplace. Employers may mandate COVID-19 testing before a worker is permitted to enter the workplace. It's like in Levy Court, I work in Levy Court as a deputy sheriff, as David has said. And what they do is they take our temperature every day. And then after they take our temperature, if it's under 99.5, they give us a band to put around our arm, which Monday we had a red band, Tuesday it was orange, and today it was a yellow band, just to let everyone know that it is safe for us to work. If a worker is voluntarily disclosing or is otherwise diagnosed with COVID-19, colleagues within close proximity and frequent contact with the employee should be advised of their possible exposure. This requires the implementation of contact tracing protocols to assess not only human interaction, but sharing of work equipment in 48 hours before diagnosis. In most circumstances, employers should not identify the specific diagnosed worker. They must treat the worker's diagnosis and related medical information as a confidential medical record. Now I want to talk about focusing on employees who may have mental illness or mental health after COVID-19. There may be employees returning to work with mental health due to increased demands at home, such as caring responsibilities, concern about finances, job security, change in workload and possible work locations, bereavement, and anxieties related to the fear of COVID itself. Mentally healthy workplaces will be a priority as the nation transitions out of lockdown. A whole system approach will be key, and you will need to focus on support, maintenance, and prevention. There is a close link between workforce well-being and organizational resilience and productivity. Now I want to talk about seeking accommodations for your employees. Employers should engage in interactive discussion concerning accommodations if an employee refuses to return to work as a result of their risk of severe illness stemming from COVID. Typically, an employer will require documents for a healthcare provider to support the accommodation request. However, because of COVID, it may be impractical, if not burdensome, to do so. Therefore, employers should consider a flexible approach when assessing the worker's accommodation request. Employers should also expect to encounter some workers who are not at high risk of higher risk of complications from COVID, but who are fearful of returning to work because of possible exposure to COVID. Now, the next one is my final thought. I should have told you I wasn't going to be before you long, but I just wanted to give you a few tips. As employers prepare to reopen their workplaces, several legal issues are in play. Employers should devise COVID-19 return to work policies and guidelines that work towards flattening the spread of COVID while maintaining healthy work environments, and act by following state and local requirements. Most importantly, these policies should be drafted and implemented in a non-discriminatory manner with the support of legal counsel. And these are the tips I wanted to share with you all today. And again, David, I wanted to thank you for allowing me to speak, even though it was on a different capacity, but it was as a counselor. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And that is it.
Thank you. And so we welcome your questions. We have some coming in already. You can put them in the chat, the Q&A. That would be very welcome. I know I also got a text or two in as well, which is interesting. So we will be asking questions So please feel free as we go along. We are now open for questions. You see the sponsors of this event. I want to thank all of the sponsors of this event. We hope to have more of these as we're used to these. There was a great deal of interest. We thank everyone who participated, both those who've listened and those who are panelists. Before we go to questions, I'd like to point out that there are several local resources where you live, whether it's the uh, Downtown Dover Partnership, which has raised a good amount of money to help with what used to be facade grants. We've made it better. And now those are also available not just for your outside facade, but for internal use for people who want to do things to maybe renovate their inside for this COVID-19 protection, because maybe you need to change spacing, maybe you need plexiglass at a counter, maybe you need other things, maybe some of the restaurants may want to renovate a little bit and even buy some tables for outside. There's different opportunities for that. Kent County also has made available for some places, for businesses in the county as well, different grants, and that's a positive. And to help with in Kent County, Smyrna has a loan program which is partially forgivable, and some other municipalities are moving in that direction as well. So please check with your local city or town, as well as Kent County. There's also information from Kent Economic Partnership, and of course, the Central Delaware Chamber of Commerce, which has an enormous amount of resources. And if you go to the Central Delaware Chamber of Commerce website, which I believe is cdcc.net, you can get a great deal of information all in one place. The resources that I mentioned, as well as many of the resources that we have here are also linked on that particular site in the Central Delaware Chamber of Commerce, if you Google that. So at this time, I'd like to start with questions. And our first question is for Mr. Banks. And it has to do with the EIDL. The one of our participants said, I applied for EIDL on April 10th and have not heard anything. I had another person as well say that they applied the first day it was eligible, and they just now heard something back. They hadn't heard before that they were even eligible, but they just got their heard back positively, and they are wondering how long it takes them to get the deposit in their account, and the other person is apparently wondering how long does it take to hear something? Do you have any information, Mr. Banks?
Well, just some information. The way that SBA communicates with prospective small business customers for this particular process is via email. One of the things that we're finding very early in the process is that the email communications that we attempted to reach out to these small businesses was going to spam filters. So the first thing I would advise customers to do is to make sure all communications that are coming from our processing centers come from an email address called disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. So the first thing that you want to do is to make sure that that email address is added to your safe list. The second thing you want to do is just to check your spam filters in the event that we attempted to reach out to you and the message got caught in the spam filter. All that being said, I want to give my email address to those businesses. It's john.banks@sba.gov. I want you to reach out to me via email and make sure that email includes your telephone number. I will reach out to you personally and see what I can do to see what your situation is specifically moving forward. And that goes for anyone else that is on the call who have not seen or heard from our processing centers. We've been challenged just like many of the other small businesses and the banking institutions as well. Unfortunately, quiet as it's been kept, we had our loans are processed out of Dallas, Fort Worth. We have a major disaster processing center there. And unfortunately, one of our employees passed from COVID-19, and that caused quite a significant disruption. There were a lot of things that we had to do in place, and it adversely slowed down a lot of the processing of applications as a result of the precautions that SBA had to take. All that being said, we're back on course, and we're pushing forward. We're processing approximately 40,000 applications per day, and we're starting to see significant movement there. But there are still a number of businesses that have not seen or heard from us. By registering those addresses, making sure that disaster customer service is in the safe list is one thing that you can do, but I can definitely investigate with the application number the status of any other applicants that have not seen or heard from SBA in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that information. We have some more questions. One, I'd like to direct the next one to Miss Lily Crawford, and that is when and how do people get copies of the slide presentation after it's over? And I'd also like to point out that we're planning to, in the next few days, we'll make available a replay of this presentation at the NAACP website and at David Anderson for Dover Facebook page.
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the slides, I plan to make those available. I will coordinate with Chris so that I can have access to all of the individuals that participated, have their email addresses. I already have all of the slides in the combined presentation that was displayed today. So once I have all the email addresses, I will get the slides out this week.
Thank you. That's very helpful. The next one, let me pull up I got some text. Let me pull up my phone here. Is for Mr. Resnicki. When it comes to, let me paraphrase this a little, make it a little simpler. When Dover Federal Credit Union has participated in the PPP program, if they do, it is extended. How long before you will make it available again? And what does the person need to bring? What type of materials do they need to bring to apply for the loan?
Yes, I mean, if it is extended, then we absolutely will definitely be part of it. We were part of it the first two times, and I would imagine that it's possible that it could be. So if it is, then we will immediately reopen the portal on our website. And that's what I would really look for. In that portal are specific spots for you to upload every piece of information that we will need. Those things are payroll documentation, 941 filings. I think there's a certification and application, and then some business formation documents, personal IDs, and some of that. But it will all be detailed right there on our website. That is the thing that can speed up or delay the process the most. If we're given everything we need up front, we can usually expedite that problem. If we have to reach out several times, that's where there can be some delays. So I would really look at exactly what it says there, and there are spots for everyone. Yeah, and we would know pretty quickly. I mean, we will know quickly when we find out if they're open or not.
And one more question for you. And that's a little bit of a softball, but it's an important one. And that is, when it comes, why is it important for people to have a local community financial institution when it comes to accessibility to these programs?
You know, I mean, I think because we just have a different knowledge and different relationship. And for us being a 100% local institution, our success is dependent on the people in the community. So if everybody in the community is successful and thriving, then our business works the same way, where we will undoubtedly get to be part of that success. You know, I think we know what's important in the community, and then organizations that aren't here locally. So we know we're here, like you said, we're involved in the Chamber of Commerce, and just there on the ground, trying to get our community to thrive.
Thank you. I also have questions for Dr. Warfield Walker and for Miss Patty Cannon. So now, quick question: when it comes to workforce rhythm, the workforce rhythm has often changed recently. How do you have any advice for a business with break rooms having to have a limited number of people and staggered breaks? How can you have a good workforce rhythm and ensure that at the same time people stay productive with a proper number of breaks, lunch, etc. But what's a good way? What's a good way to reestablish a rhythm, Dr. Walker? I don't know if she can hear me.
I would have to say, at this moment, at the beginning stages of returning back to work, it will be kind of difficult. You just have to go with the flow of what to see how many employees will come back into the workforce, and then from there you would have to come together, compromising as far as who will go on a break. Like for instance, we're back into work full force. We're all back to work. So we all go back to the same capacity we've been in, with the exception of wearing a mask and taking our temperature, everything is the same. But when you're going back into the workforce and it's a limited number of people there, I guess you would have to just wait to see how the flow is and just come together and figure out what will be best for the employees. You know, that's unfortunate. That's all I can tell you, because this is all new to everyone.
And is Miss Cannon still there? Patty, you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I had it on mute. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Ms. Cannon, the next question has to do with the help program in the hospitality, et cetera. Who's eligible for that? It was said that some eligibility has expanded. Who's eligible to get it, and is there still money left in it?
So I'll answer the second question first, because that's the easier one. Yes, there's still money left. The eligibility, it's done by NAICS code, but if you tend to think of, it was primarily for restaurants and hotels is what it started out as. And then they gradually started expanding to leisure activities to some degree, but it's by NAICS code. And I had those in the slide and it just made the slide so noisy, I took them off. but I'm happy, I can send you that link so that they can find the list of everyone. But I would say this about the help loan, which I think John Banks would say about the SBA and Mr. Isnicki would say about the Dover Federal Credit Union. Here's what we know. If you look at all the small businesses in Delaware, on average, they average between 2.75 and 3 employees. That's on average. Now we have, a handful in the upper end that are, maybe by SBA standards could even be a couple hundred and be considered small business. But in our division of small business, it's in the, 20 to 99 category, but there aren't as many. They are dwarfed by the number of really small businesses. And so if we know that most of the businesses that we consider small businesses in Delaware are 2 to 3 people, they're really good at whatever they do, whether it's making flowers, making, floral displays, whether it's baking cakes, whether it's, fixing cars. They're really good at that, but they don't generally have a full-time bookkeeper. They don't generally have a full-time CPA on staff. So when the SBA or the state of Delaware offers a help loan, or Dover Federal Credit Union says we're open for EIDL again, when those things happen, these small businesses, the biggest challenge they're facing is getting all the right documentation in place, because they don't have somebody that's their only job. So if I could give one piece of advice today, it would be, in the hope that the SBA will expand, in the hope that that the help definition of eligibility expands, you only get one shot to put your best foot forward. And if you want to get that money fast, you've got to get your application correctly submitted. So, we've got a team of 4 people that can help, but the SBDCs, all of these resource partners are there to help these small businesses get their documentation in place. That is the biggest secret, I think, to getting through the process quickly and smoothly, is getting your documentation, planning. As I don't remember which speaker talked about plan, but start planning today, assuming you can submit that tomorrow, and be ready so that the underwriter isn't having to come back to you 2 or 3 times to ask for additional information.
Thank you. And the next one, I'm not sure who to direct it to, but it's whoever wants to take it can. And that is with the enhanced unemployment, it's been difficult for some businesses to get employees back by and the June 30th deadline, if it's not extended, is fast approaching. Even though people have to come back, if called back, there are exceptions, which are deal with people who have accommodations that need to be made, but they're pretty vague. What advice do you have to an employer who is worried that because a significant portion of their workforce has yet to return? Are there places in the PPE that they can, are there exceptions in there that can ease their worry a little bit, or what are their options?
I can definitely talk a little bit about that, because that was one of the challenges that many of the small businesses that we were working with under the Paycheck Protection Program were encountered with. We were actually giving them 8 weeks worth of salaries to bring their employees back on board, whether or not the business was open. But we heard overwhelmingly that most of those employees would prefer to stay out on unemployment, because they were getting the equivalent of their paychecks plus $600, and they were actually making more money staying home as opposed to going back. And that created a challenge for the small businesses receiving the Paycheck Protection Loan Program, because again, they had to use up to 75% of that loan proceeds to support payroll. But if you couldn't bring your people back, it presented a challenge. The way that we are mitigating this right now is with the proposed legislation that will allow small businesses not just to focus on the instant 8 weeks, but being able to show that they use those loan proceeds to meet that standard over a 24-week period of time. That's definitely going to help small businesses to utilize those funds and still qualify for forgiveness. One other thing I wanted to mention before I forget, and that is that the Paycheck Protection Program is still out there. We've heard challenges from small businesses not being able to locate lenders that is willing to support them, or their bank wasn't participating, and other banks weren't accepting applications from non-bank customers. And since the program the demand for the program has significantly reduced, we've been able to identify banks that will be willing to accept applications from non-bank customers. We have some other non-traditional lending entities involved, PayPal, for example, Quicken, Intuit, the manufacturers of Quicken, Cabbage with a K. These are all non-bank institutions that are participating in the Paycheck Protection Program to help small businesses meet that particular need. There's over $100 billion remaining, so there's plenty of dollars left, but the clock is ticking. The program, according to the legislation, the last day that we can accept an application for the program is September 30th. So if you have not done so already, or if you're challenged with that, please, by all means, reach out to me, reach out to my team members, and let us help guide you. I worked with a young lady last week. She put in an application and got approved in 2 days. So the process is definitely a lot quicker, but we want to ensure that every small business that is challenged with this get the access to the capital that they need. And if they are challenged with trying to identify a participating lender or whatever the case may be, please allow us to help you. Reach out to me, reach out to my team members, and we will hold your hand through the process. Thank you. The microphone is muted, David.
Thank you very much. Do any of the panelists or any of the sponsors have any closing words that they would like to have? While you're thinking of that, I will give you a very quick update. The city of Dover is budget has passed its first stage, and the first reading will be next Monday. It is scheduled right now to include a relatively significant electric rate cut for businesses, which the utilities for businesses will range depending upon the different classes, but the average small business will save about 5%. So, for instance, an average restaurant will save over $2,000 a year. That will hopefully be a little bit of a help. And there's and we're also looking if people are interested in changing the deadline for paying property taxes on a one-time basis from July 1st to September 30th to allow, because a lot of people, whether it's employment or whether it's the businesses hadn't been allowed to open, need a chance to get their cash flow restored. If you have interest in that, please email cityclerk@dover.de.us, or you can email me on the slide if you have interest in seeing that actually happen, and we will pass it on. Does anyone have anything else? If not, I want to thank everybody for participating. And are there any more questions? I'm not seeing any more. Let me check my phone here. I'm not seeing any more. Are there any other questions or comments?
Councilman Anderson, this is Lily. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Okay, good. I was talking before, but obviously I was on mute. I just wanted to thank everyone, thank all of our panelists for participating. Wanted to thank Dean Casson for agreeing to sponsor this event through the College of Business. I wanted to thank you and Ann Smith for partnering on this virtual town hall. This is definitely something that I know we will want to carry forward and do additional virtual town halls or WebEx events as we stay in this virtual world until we're all able to gather again. So I am definitely thankful for the partnership and collaboration for this event. We will share the slides and any additional resources that any of the panelists have with the participants. I will definitely try to get that information out this week. And again, I'm just so thankful for those that attended and those that participated. This was an excellent session. I think a lot of great information was shared that will be beneficial to small business owners in the community. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone, and thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.